All right, guys, Wes here. Welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to talk about Far Cry 7. So if it's not been clear enough already, Ubisoft has been absolutely spamming us with Assassin's Creed. And while I do admit that AC Mirage looks pretty great, there are plenty of other Ubisoft properties that do deserve some love. The Prince of Persia series has been on a bit of a hold until the new 2D game comes out in the near future, after Ubisoft quietly erased the Sands of Time remake from the internet for reasons unexplained. While Skull and Bones is still awaiting a proper release date after being removed from the schedule once again, Avatar Frontiers looks promising, and of course the publisher has been putting a lot of legwork into making sure everyone's excited for Star Wars Outlaws. But there's one other major Ubisoft franchise that we've all heard very little about in the last couple of years, and according to some recent leaks, that may be changing in the near future. So in today's video, we're going to go over some new intel that we got about the 7th mainline Far Cry game and the potential multiplayer spinoff meant to capitalize on extraction shooter craze. So let me know in the comments what you guys think about the future of Far Cry, drop a like, and let's get into it. We actually covered some early Far Cry 7 leaks a few weeks ago, but in the recent days, some new sources have come out and found some new intel on the initial leaks, while also providing some additional insight as to what the final product will look like. So take everything with a grain of salt, but at this point, multiple sources have confirmed various things about the game, which is usually what happens when a leak is either completely credible or is mostly credible. But according to the leaks, Far Cry 7 is actually going to be ditching the numbered title and instead be called something like Far Cry Rise, which could mean that we're going to be getting a reboot of the franchise or possibly a prequel. Granted, the Far Cry games are almost entirely disconnected from one another in terms of the story, which is how Far Cry 5 could end in a nuclear apocalypse, and yet it didn't affect Far Cry 6 at all. But the fact that Far Cry is leaving the numbering system behind implies that there will at least be some kind of reboot vibe to it. According to the new leaks, Far Cry Rise will be set in a fictional island of the Yellow Sea near Korea called Kimson that is run by a North Korean insurgent. The main villain will allegedly be named Choi Sang-pil, who will be played by Ling Jung-jae, who many of you guys might know as the main character from the Netflix's Squid Game show, carrying on the recent tradition of having Far Cry villains played by actual recognizable TV show actors. Far Cry Rise will reportedly give the player a choice between two protagonists, one named Andrew and one named Mina, two siblings who are Korean idols and were stranded on an island and have to survive against the insurgents. Right off the bat, this sounds like we have kind of a wacky premise, which makes me wonder if the tone of Far Cry Rise is going to be a bit lighter than the previous ones, perhaps closer to Far Cry New Dawn than 5 or 6, but then again, I could just be reading too much into this premise. There's a lot of comedic potential in having Korean idols be the main characters of a Far Cry game, but then again, I could just be reading too much into the premise. Ubisoft could be very well playing it straight, so I guess we'll have to wait and see. Now, according to the leaks, Far Cry Rise will have a branching storyline, and there will be a lot of choices to make throughout the main campaign that change the outcome, including what alliances you make and what battles you choose to fight, which could end up offering a ton of replay value. It's also been suggested by leakers that the game is going to offer 4-player co-op, which is a little strange since the story about the two distinct characters and normally 4-player co-op is the kind of thing that you'd see in a game with totally customizable protagonists, or at least a larger pool of playable characters. However, it's possible that the leaks about the 4-player co-op are actually in regards to the other Far Cry experience in development called Far Cry Conquest, which is a standalone multiplayer game meant to be accompanying the new Far Cry game, similar to how Call of Duty Warzone accompanies all the new COD titles. Now, Far Cry Conquest will have squads of either 3 or 4 players. There's conflicting info there, which is understandable, exploring a massive open world while completing narrative-driven missions and completing extraction objectives, while also potentially encountering some of the other players. And the leaks also suggest that there's going to be somewhere between 90 and 100 players on the map at any given time. The leaks also say that while this multiplayer mode is going to be heavily inspired by extraction-based games like Escape from Tarkov and Call of Duty DMZ, Far Cry's take on the genre is going to be less about killing other players and more about exploration and story. Although I think all of us really know that that's not going to last very long. I mean, this is the gaming community we're talking about, so Ubisoft can say all they want that the gaming isn't about killing each other, but we all know that we're going to do it, especially if that means we can take their loot. Now, as for the release date, I'm personally expecting the next Far Cry game to come out in late 2024, possibly early 25. Far Cry 6 dropped in October of 2021, so a late 2024 release date could give it a full 3 years. But then again, we've been hearing a ton of rumors that Rockstar is planning on releasing GTA 6 in either 2024 or early 25, and possibly Ubisoft doesn't want to put their own open world action game against the most anticipated game of all time. So quite honestly, I think Far Cry 7's release date is really going to be entirely dependent on when Rockstar decides to finally drop a GTA 6 trailer, but there is no possible way that Ubisoft wants to put Far Cry directly up against GTA. That would be a very bad idea. But what do you guys think about this potential future of Far Cry games? Do you think an extraction shooter is a good choice for the series, or do you think that they should just stick with their open world FPS format? Personally, I'm really excited to see what the Ubisoft team can do with a truly next-gen Far Cry game, and if it's not already evident, I think the Far Cry 6 game was held back due to having to run on the Xbox One and PS4, but I'm really just hoping that the storytelling can get to back to the levels of Far Cry 2 and 3, because I think most of us fully agree that that's where the franchise peaked, aside from possibly Far Cry 5. And as for the extraction shooter, I think that's a fantastic idea as long as it doesn't take away too much from the core identity of the franchise. Far Cry is already a series known for its gigantic maps and open world gameplay, so it's honestly a perfect fit for an extraction based shooter, but I also don't want Ubisoft to overcommit to making the series multiplayer and end up walking away from their core audience, because that's what happened to Call of Duty after Activision got a bit too excited about the success of Warzone. But I'm curious to hear what your guys' thoughts are in the comment section about all this news. Are you excited for Far Cry 7? Let me know down below. Guys, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel with your notifications turned on so you don't miss out on any future videos. And until next time, this has been Wes from VGL, and I'll talk to you guys again soon.